Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. Do everything without complaining or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a crooked and depraved generation, in which you should shine like stars in the universe. As you hold out the word of life, in order that I may boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor for nothing. But even if I am being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I am glad and rejoice with all of you. So you too should be glad and rejoice with me.
Simon's going to come and speak to us in a moment. While the talk is on, there are some craft activities for the children to take part in at the table at the side. So we've got some sun catchers that you can colour, and we've got some door hangers that you can decorate as well. So if anyone wants to do that, they can come to the table with me.
Morning, everybody. Before we look at the actual verses in question, I thought it'd be good to start by talking about how we study the passage. So we meet at Soul Group Friday night, and that picture there isn't Soul Group, it's just some random people found on the internet. So we meet on Friday night at Soul Group. And we usually split between seniors and juniors, but we join together and we do something called Haverim, which, as you can see, means friends who study together. And this is something that the PACE teams have introduced since they've been with us. And it involves studying a passage of scripture and looking at it in 4 distinct ways to get a full understanding of what it means. Steve. Brilliant. Okay, so these 4 things, 4 aspects of looking at the Bible passage: context, who wrote it, when and why; connection, are there other passages in the Bible that relate to or support this passage; collaboration, that involves putting ourselves in the shoes, if you like, of the people who are involved in the passage; and contemplation, how can we put this into practice? How can we live out what we have learned? So this morning's sermon is a mixture of what came out of our Haverim session together with some of my own thoughts. So let's start with context. So this is quite a well-known passage in Acts. And in Acts, it describes how Paul's moving around, sharing the gospel, setting up churches. And it says here, during the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and begging him, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." After Paul had seen the vision, we got ready at once to leave for Macedonia, concluding that the gospel had called us to preach the gospel to them. From Troas, we put out to sea and sailed straight for Samothrace, and the next day we went to Neapolis. From there we went to Philippi, a Roman colony, and the leading city of that district, and Macedonia, and we stayed there several days. So that explains Paul's connection with Philippi. And he visited Philippi on 3 occasions during his travels, so he got to know the church there and the believers really well. And Philippians is considered to be one of Paul's happy letters. That's not because he wrote it while he was on holiday. That's because he got to know the Philippians, and he could see that they were a thriving church. They were heading in the right direction. So it's happy, it's full of encouragement and gratitude, all very positive. So that's just an explanation of the context. What about the connection? Well, again, this is the passage we're sort of concentrating on from Philippians. Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God, without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky, as you hold firmly to the word of life. So that's where we get our theme for this morning, shining like stars. And there are other passages in the Bible that mention light, so that's the connection. Just John 1:5, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And then 2 Corinthians 4:6, for God who said, let light shine out of the darkness, made his light to shine in our hearts, to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. So that's 2 just short passages that speak about light. Many, many more in the Bible. Next, we consider collaboration. Like I said, we put ourselves in what it's like to be the writer of the letter, Paul, or the people who received the letter, or how did they feel, the congregation of the churches in Philippi. And lastly, of course, contemplation. What does this passage mean for us today? How do we apply this to our own lives? So, as I said earlier, the theme for this morning's passage is about stars. What do we know about stars? I thought you were putting your hand up there. I thought you were just putting your hair back. Sorry. Yeah, what do we know about stars? Number 1, stars are beautiful. Stars, aren't they pretty? This is a picture of the night sky. Unfortunately, if you go out tonight in Lee, you will not see this because of something called light pollution. So you might see 1 or 2 stars, you might see Orion's Bow and the Plough, but you'll not see anything like this. If you need to see something like this, you need to go and see where they have dark skies. I was looking on the internet, and Rivington is the nearest place that they recommend the dark skies, and you might get a decent view. Probably not as good as this. So stars are beautiful, and we can be beautiful too. Not necessarily in how we look, but as stars, we reflect God's beauty, and we can do beautiful things for people. We can buy gifts. We can encourage people. And we can do great things for people, both as individuals and collectively as a church. I thought personally it was beautiful that in the summer we put on this, we opened up the church grounds and put on this fantastic party to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That's a beautiful thing to do. And we did it collectively as a church, and we're thinking of doing something similar to celebrate the coronation of King Charles. But there's something beautiful, that we can be beautiful. We can reflect God's light, and just as stars are beautiful, we can be beautiful too. The next point I want to make is that stars, Steve, it's not blocking again. Thank you. Stars are useful. Somebody mentioned earlier that back many, many years ago, stars were used to direct people. They were used for navigation. And because they don't move around, or they move around very slowly, you can plot them, they can be used as navigation as long as it's not cloudy. And if you look at this picture, that's somebody using an instrument called a sextant, which people used to use to guide them, to guide the stars, especially when they were at sea, when they were sailing. They would use this instrument, take it with them, so they could tell where they are. So stars can give direction. And so can we. We can shine like stars, and we can give direction. A big part of that is by being constant or consistent. Like a star in the sky, we're always around. We're reliable. We're trusting. We're not fair weather friends. We're not there in the good times, but not in the bad, so people can rely on us. There's a saying that was made by an American World War II general, Omar Bradley, and he said this: "Set your course by the stars, not by the lights of every passing ship." We should use Jesus as our guide and his teaching as our point of reference in knowing what to do. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be distracted by what others think we should do or say. They can be like the lights of passing ships. They can shine brightly, but they're constantly moving. And if we're not careful, we can be led astray. So if we use Jesus as our guide because he is constant, so in turn we can be a guide to others. We can show them the right way. We can lead them to Christ. We can point out the dangers and the ways that are wrong or dangerous. The things to take on and the things to avoid, because we are constant and dependable. The stars are dependable because they don't move around so much. The lights of passing ships aren't because they're constantly moving. The next point I want to make is that some stars, say the planets in our solar system, they don't generate their own light, they reflect the light of the sun. And if you're an astronomer and you know where these planets are in the sky, then you can see them. These stars don't generate their own light, they reflect the light of the sun. Now it's interesting that the term we use for someone who's very famous is a star. So we have sports stars. Can anyone tell me who this is? Yes, congratulations, thank you. Serena Williams, sports stars. We have pop stars. You ready? Anybody else? No, okay, yes. No, it's not Michael Jackson. This lady knows. Harry Styles. Yes, Harry Styles. So we have sports stars, pop stars. This one might be a bit tricky. Anyone tell me this film star? Do you know that as well? All right. Gerald Butler. Okay, yes. These stars, in a way, generate their own light. They win competitions and trophies. They produce well-known songs. They appear in blockbuster movies. They're famous. They shine like stars. They create huge amounts of publicity. They have millions of followers on social media. And compared to them, our stars can seem very small and insignificant. Our little stars. The next song we're going to sing is This Little Star of Mine. And our stars can seem incredibly small, especially, as we said, compared to those of famous people. But as with the planets in our solar system, they may appear very small, but they're reflecting the light of the sun. They're reflecting the light of something much greater. We likewise, our little lights reflect the light of something greater. We reflect the light of God. We're shining like stars in the darkness, but reflecting the light of God. We don't have to create our own light. We don't have to strive to be amazing. We don't have to be incredibly talented. We don't have to be extremely popular. We simply have to reflect the light of God. And we believe as Christians that God's light is good, that God's light is beautiful and perfect, and it is unchanging. So the lights of famous stars shine very brightly, but they are like the lights of passing ships. They come and go. Our lights are little, but they are eternal, like God is eternal. They're beautiful as God's love is beautiful. They can show the way, they can give direction, and they can lead people from danger. So our lights are very small, but they reflect a greater and perfect light. So practically we can do so many things, either big or small. Big things like the CAP and the Trussell Trust food banks, these are established by Christians, but there's a multitude of small things we can do. We can forgive someone who has wronged us. We can help someone who's disadvantaged. We can encourage someone who's going through a hard time. And in doing these things, we reflect God's love. Amen. So I think it is now time for me to hand over to the band and we will sing another song. Thank you.